Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of our Zoom shiur. Tonight we're going to be studying Parshat Vayechi. I'd like to thank again Joe Nahari and Meir Gabay for arranging this shiur, and for Yonatan Lamy sponsoring the Zoom connection. And I would like to dedicate tonight's shiur Lelui Nishmat Rivka Bat Shein Ruach Hashem Tinichena B'Gan Eden Amen. And L'chaim Tovim Refuah Shlema for Gabriela Nomi Bat Lea Malka, Elisheva Bat Sheva Bat Rivka, תקווה אושני בת רוזט, and קלודין בת חנה רוחמה, בתוך כל שאר חולי עמו ישראל, רפואה שלמה for עולם ישראל. And tonight is the parasha of the Barachot, Vayechi, the life of Yaakov. At the end of his life, Yaakov calls all his sons, his grandsons. He gives them all a bracha. It's time to give the bracha. It's a special moment at the time, the end of the person in his life. And he wants to pass over to the next generation. It's like it's included together. There's last will and testament. Some of his sons, he tells them what to do. He gives a little bit of Musar and Tochacha to Shimon and Levi, to Reuven. There's a bit of prophecy. But the main part, which I want to speak about tonight, is the brachot. And you see, really, Yossefs is what I want to speak about, is Yossefs. Because you see in the beginning, Yossefs is the first one to get the bracha. He calls over his two sons, Menashe and Ephraim. Then he gives all the other tribes brachot, and then he gives again to Yossefs at the end. And we have a minhag that we bless our children like the children of Yossefs, Menashe and Ephraim, right? And in fact, that's the pasuk says. The pasuk tells us specifically that's what we're supposed to do. It says, "Va'ata shnei banecha," bring your two sons that was born to you in Mitzrayim. And he blesses them with Hamalach hagoel oti mikora. One second, let me get it. Yeah, Vayevarech bayom hahu lemor becha yevarech Yisrael lemor yisimcha Elokim ke'Ephraim v'chir Menashe. He tells Yossefs that all of Am Yisrael, for all generations, they're going to bless their own children, and they're going to say, Yisimcha Elokim ke'Ephraim v'chir Menashe. And then he blessed them. And the question is, why is that? Why is that a special bracha? That we want our children to be like Menashe and Ephraim, or Ephraim and Menashe.
Because they were in unity, they didn't fight.
Excellent. So we gave once a shiur about this. We give, I think, maybe 3 or 4 reasons. One of the reasons, like Gilad said, is because there was ava and achva between the brothers, Menashe and Ephraim. There was sinah between all the brothers since Cain and Hevel. The first 2 brothers, they fought. Then we had Ishmael and Yitzchak, Esav and Yaakov, Yosef and his brothers, and finally here we have Moshe, Menashe and Ephraim, which are befriended. And we want also our children to have shalom. And shalom that's the peace, that's the kli, which is machzik bracha. It's the vessel which holds all blessing, is peace. So that's one reason. Another reason is that Menashe and Ephraim, they lived. Where did they live? Where did they live?
In Egypt.
In Egypt. Thank you, Yossef. In Egypt, yeah, absolutely. You got Yosef from Egypt, and that's where they lived, in Egypt. Where did all the other grandchildren grow up? In the house of Yaakov Avinu, in the house of a tzaddik. So they saw the whole time a tzaddik, the family of tzaddikim, kedusha. Okay, so of course the children are going to raise up and they're going to be born tzaddikim. But if you're raising a child in Egypt, where is the center of tumah, the impurity of the whole world, how are you going to bring up kosher children? How are you going to bring up children just pure from kedusha? And Yosef HaTzaddik managed to do that with his children. He managed to keep them and protect them from all of the exterior what's going on in Egypt by teaching them Torah, by teaching them purity, by teaching them. And he managed to hold on to that. He said, that's what we bless our children. Wherever you are in the world, you will be Jewish and you will stay faithful to the Torah. That's what we want to bless our children with. Whatever challenges is going to represent for you. So that's the second reason. And another reason, third reason, is because they brought up a level. If I bless you, I wish your children, I hope them to become as great as you. Is that a bracha for you, Gilad? You're a great person. I bless your children and be as good as you.
It is a bracha.
It's a nice bracha. But what if I tell them, Gilad, listen, you're a great, successful person. I'll bless your children, they become even greater than you. You'll be happy with that, no? Of course. Everybody wants their children to become better than them. That's what I want for my children. Some people live their dream through their children. There's people who can't manage to do things that I want at least my children to have that chance. I want my children to be better than me. And what do we see by Menashe and Ephraim? That they were the grandchildren. There's a musag, there's a concept of Yeridat HaDorot, which means that generations go down a level. You have the grandfather, is Yaakov. He was Bechir Sheba Avot, one of the best from the three fathers, patriots. Then you have the children, the Shvatim, the tribes. Then you have the grandchildren. They went down a generation. But Menashe and Ephraim, they took a step up. And Yaakov said that Menashe and Ephraim, Reuven v'Shimon Yuli, they will be like the tribes. There was for 12 tribes, but then it became 13 tribes because Yossefs split it into Menashe and Ephraim. They got raised up a level to the level of a tribe from a grandchild. None of the other grandchildren got that privilege. Yossef was the Bechor of Rachel. He was the firstborn of Rachel, and he got the double portion, like a Bechor gets a double portion. So he became 2 tribes. And we said that was part of Rachel. When she gave up Yaakov Avinu, she gave her sister the Simanim, and she said, okay. So she thought, maybe she'll never have children again. She'll never be married to Yaakov. And not only that she had children, but she had 2 tribes. 2 tribes, Menashe and Ephraim, they got split up to, Yosef got split up into 2. 1 second, sorry, I made a mistake, I got mixed up. It was Leah prayed for Rachel. That's all he said. Leah prayed for Rachel that she should have a boy in her, and the Dinah switched with Yosef. Leah said, I have 6 sons, and if I have a 7th son, that means my sister Rachel is only going to have 1 son, because they knew Yaakov Avinu was going to have 12 tribes. And she made a calculation. There's 4 wives, each one 12 divided by 4. Each one's supposed to have 3 boys. Now, if I have 6 boys, and the other 2 wives, they each have 2 boys, that's already on 10. So there's only 2 boys left. If I have another boy, that means my sister Rachel is only going to have one boy. She's going to have even less than the other 2 wives. I can't do that to my sister. She prayed. And this is the only time we see in history that she prayed and she was allowed to pray. In fact, we said in the Gemara, you're not allowed to pray for change in gender. You can't pray for that. Before 40 days, you can. Before 40 days, you're allowed. That's when the gender hasn't been decided. After 40 days, you just pray for it to be a healthy baby. And Leah said, I don't want my sister to have it, less than others. And she prayed to Hashem to switch her baby with Rachel's baby. And the Torah tells us, and Rashi says, Dinah was switched with Yosef. Dinah was supposed to have be born to Rachel, and Yosef was supposed to be born to Leah, or a boy was supposed to be born to Leah. And because she switched, Yosef was born to Rachel. Now it seems to be that Leah missed out and she lost on the tribe. Instead of having 7 tribes, she only had 6. Now, if you make the calculation, Dinah, when she was taken by Shechem, she had a daughter, and she was called Osnat. Because she was born from is an illicit marriage. It wasn't a marriage, out of marriage, and she was born from Shechem, who was a goy. So Yaakov Avinu put a charm on her to protect her, and he left her outside of the family. She shouldn't be part of the family because she was born from the Shechem ben Chamor, from the goy who abducted her, abused her. So he gave her that charm of protection, and she sent her off. This girl was adopted later on by Potiphar, and that's why Eshet Potiphar, the wife of Potiphar, she saw in the stars that her descendants was going to have to be together with Yossef. She had L'Shem Shemaim intentions. And this thought that how did she come into Yossef? So when Yossef became king of Egypt, he was brought through his chariots through all of Egypt, and all the girls wanted to come up and see Yossef. And they were all throwing jewelry at him to get his attention, and he wasn't looking at anyone. He wasn't interested in any of the Egyptian girls, nothing. And this girl, Osnat, she took her necklace for the first time. She took it off and she threw it at Yossef. Yossef suddenly that catches his eye, and he sees was engraved on this charm the name of Yaakov Avinu, of his father. And he realized that this girl was from Bet Yaakov. So he said, "Excuse me, whose charm is this? I want to know which girl is this?" And then Osnat said, "It's mine." He said, "Where does it come from?" He said, "I don't know. My father gave it to me. I was born with it on my neck." He said, "I want to marry you." And from her, she was the mother of Ephraim and Manasseh. Now, why am I telling you this? It's very interesting. Because, first of all, you see, that's why Potiphar's wife thought she was going to be with Yossef, because she thought, L'Shem Shemaim, I can see in the stars we have a future together. And it wasn't her, it was her daughter. But also, we see that all resulted as from Osnat, came from Dinah, which came from Leah. So really, Leah was the grandmother or great-grandmother of Menashe and Ephraim. So when she thought, I'm going to give up for my sister to let her have a tribe, instead of having 7 tribes, I'm only going to have 6 tribes. But as a result of that, she ended up having the double, 8. If she would have never given up for her sister, she would have had 7. Now I think I'm losing, I'm giving up, I'm going to only have 6. You give up, you think about somebody else, you think about them. You give up from yourself, you're not going to lose. You always get back. That's the principle. And you see, Leah, she had the double. She wouldn't have had the twins otherwise. The Menashe and Ephraim became 2 tribes. So that was the bracha that person gets when they give up for someone else. That is an introduction to Yossef. But really, I want to speak about Yossef because this is really remarkable. Yossef, he gets the privilege of being the first of the brachot. But also, he gets much more than that. And let's see. What does Yossef get? Yossef, does anyone know what Yossef means?
To add to.
Yes, to add. Now it's interesting. If you look at the bracha, what is his bracha? He gets the greatest bracha. First of all, he's the first one who gets approached. Obviously, maybe as being king. His sons get blessed first, then all the tribes, and then we go back to Yossef. Tonight we have 2 Yossefs in the shiur. I don't know who's listening to the recording, but we have Joe Nahari's Yossef. We have Yossef Ibrahim is Yossef. And in fact, you find that Yossef is, I think, one of the most popular, maybe the most popular name in the world, Yossef. In fact, you find it in every language. Yossef and Yossi in Hebrew, Joe or Joey, Joseph, Joseph, Yosef. It's in Arabic, it's in French, it's in Russian, Mexican, all languages. I don't know if they have in Chinese. Maybe we'll ask Ehud if they have Chinese Yossef. But all the Semitic religions of you see the Christians, the Jews, and the Arabs all have the name Yossef. And why is it Yossef? So look at the bracha which Yossef gets, and then maybe you feel like also Mel avicha v'yazreka v'et shaddai v'yivarcheka means I'll give you the blessing of your fathers that will help you, and he will bless you. Birchot shamayim, you have an abundance from heavens. B'shefa me'al birchot tehom, and you'll be blessed from the blessings of tehom is the depths. Rovetzet tachat, from the depths of the fountains. Birchot shadayim v'racham, and we're blessed with abundance also of children. On every level, Yossef gets blessed from the heavens, the abundance which comes from the heavens, the abundance from the earth, and from the abundance on the land. Listen to this. This is mind-boggling. Yossef says to his son, Yaakov says to Yossef, the blessings of your father, that means Yaakov, Brechot avicha gavu al brechot Torai. I got more than my parents got. More than Yitzchak and more than Abraham. Because Abraham and Yitzchak, they got blessed at the Aretz Azot, this land. Yaakov said, I got blessed, Yama v'kedma tzafona v'negba. All corners of the globe is where I got blessed. Ad tavot givot olam, with no limits. The abundance which I was blessed with from HaKadosh Baruch Hu is on all four corners of the earth. An extreme abundance, ad ta'avat givot olam, which translation literally means without borders of the world. Alternatively, that's Rashi. Alternatively, Targum Onkelos says, ta'avat givot olam, loshan the ta'avat of desire. And then it says, Tiyena l'rosh Yosef, he will be the head, Yosef, ulkodkod nezir echav, which means he will be separated from his brothers. Nazir echav means separated, or nazir could be nezer, like a crown over his brothers. Now the question is simply, why is Yosef, he's separated and becomes independent above all the other brothers, above everyone, all of Am Yisrael? Why is Yosef so great? Why does everyone call their names or Yosef or Joe, Joey? Why did everyone call them after Yosef? What's special about him? And what does it mean, Ben Porat Yosef? Ben Porat Yosef. You know, you're growing up in Porat Yosef. You think, what does Porat mean? Porat sounds like Parat. Yeah, it doesn't mean Parat Yosef. It doesn't mean the cow Yosef. Porat Yosef means Porat is chen, means charm or favor. Because Yosef found favor everywhere he went. He was loved by everyone. That was Yosef. He was charming in every way. So, Ben Porat Yosef, what's the connection of that charm to Yosef? And why does Yaakov Avinu bless him with everything? All of the blessings above all his brothers, Yosef gets. Why would he get that?
Even more than Yehuda?
Even much more than Yehuda. Is way more in every single level, without no limits. Yehuda was king, but you see that the abundance of comes in from Yosef. Now you see, it's very interesting you say that because it seems to be there's a Jew, okay?
But if you think of Yehuda, it's Bechokek Miben Raglav. It's like he's
Absolutely.
saying that essentially the Mashiach will come from Yehuda.
Okay,
yes.
So very good. So you touched on the word Mashiach, okay? So thank you for that. But if you think about it, Yaakov had two main wives, okay? Rachel and Leah. Now also, there's a lot of things which is also episode which we need Rachel and Leah for. And like you said, there is Yehuda, which is a king, and there's also Yosef, which was a king. We spoke about this already in previous shurim. We have Melech HaMashiach, which is Mashiach ben Yosef, and Mashiach ben David. So ultimately, the kingdom, who was the first king? The first king came from Leah, from Rachel. The first Mishkan was Mishkan Shiloh. After that, we had the Beit HaMikdash and Mashiach ben David. That comes later. But on the level of brachot, Yosef seems to be getting everything. Now, I'm going to go slightly deeper with the shiur tonight. And a little bit touching on Kabbalah, but I think there's something that everyone can learn from here, including myself, and on every different level. And this is really foundation. So just the two questions we want to ask, which we were trying to answer, or maybe we can say three questions. Is question number one, why is Yosef getting much more than everyone else? Why is he getting all the brachot of my fathers? Everything I got from Yitzchak and Yaakov, I'm giving to you, Yosef. Why is he separated and he's a cut above the rest? Question number one. Number two, what's the chen of Yosef? Why is it called Porat Yosef? What is the special attribute of charm, of chen, and that's got to do with his bracha of Yosef? That's question number two. And question number three, maybe that's we can understand why we bless our children after the sons of Yosef, Menashe and Ephraim. Okay, so first a little bit about Kabbalah. We know there are the seven shepherds, so Ro'ei Israel, or the seven Ushpizin. We call them Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe, Aaron, Yosef, and David. So, in the attributes of Chokhmat Kabbalah, we know there is Keneged Chesed, Gvura Tiferet, Netzach Hod Yesod. Now, you don't need to know what they mean, but I just need to know that it represents the different fathers, and everything in creation is divided up into those attributes. Okay, I said 7 of them, there's really 10. But everything in creation, if you study Kabbalah, it comes up all the time. These fields. Also in all the mitzvot, almost in creation, in the body of man, in the face of man, in everything comes up with these fields again. But the Yesod means foundation. Yesod is Keneged Yosef, which means Yosef is representing Yesod. Yesod is the foundation, and everything comes down to the Yesod. That's what you have to understand. Yosef is Yesod, and Yesod is foundation. That's what holds the building, is the foundation. That is the Yesod. All the Shefa, all the abundance of the bracha that comes, Ruchiniyot and Gashmiyot, spiritual and physical, all comes from the Yesod, the foundation, which is Yosef. Okay? So that's a really good reason to call your son Yosef. Yosef is the only person in the Torah who is called Ish Matzliach, which means a successful man. He was successful in everything. He was straight away made the head of Potiphar's house. Potiphar was maybe one of the most affluent men, influential, rich men in Egypt, and Yosef was in charge of his whole household. Even when Yosef was in prison, he found favor in everyone. He was like basically in charge, an old man in prison. And obviously when he got out, he became king of Egypt. So he was very successful. All the Torah of Yaakov Avinu, he passed over directly to his son, Yosef. So you see in the Torah, he had very successful children that we just said that in all the generations of Am Yisrael, we bless our children to be like the children of Yosef. He was Chacham. He was the clever man, Navon. Even Paro said, I can see how clever and wise you are. Shem Shamayim Shagur b'fiv. His mouth was always talking about Hashem. So in Ruchaniyut and in Gashmiyut, he was number one. Number one was Yosef.
I think he was the only son among his brothers who received all the religious teaching from his father.
Yaakov. Yes. Yeah. So this is what we said now, that he got all his Torah from Yaakov Avinu, went directly to Yosef. And there's many comparisons between Yosef and his father Yaakov. Now, where do we see this? We see this even in the dreams. In the dreams of Yosef, remember his first 2 dreams he had? You see over there that he is in charge of all physical and spiritual. Why do you see that? Because what was the first dream?
Alumot.
Alumot, thank you. What's Alumot? That was the sheaves of the wheat. The bundles of wheat were bowing down to Yosef. What does wheat represent?
Shefa.
Shefa of what? Wheat. Is flour, is bread, that's food. All gashmiut. Everything which is physical, that's represented by what we eat. That is a sign of, that's a sign of financial wealth, of money. Think about it. How do you say? You say bread. That's money.
Symbol of earth.
Is that? But that's a symbol. You say dough. Dough is money. Bread is money. Lechem is milchama. In the word of English, we say even that's the bread, that's the food, that's the money. And that was all banged down to Yosef. So he was responsible. He was mashbir lekol ha'aretz, which means he provided the bread, or he provided the financial needs and the sustenance, and he fed all of Egypt. So he was responsible for giving out on the level of physical gashmi to everyone. What was the second dream?
The stars.
Sun
Stars.
The
And the heavens. So what does that represent? If you see all the stars bowing down to him, so you see even on a spiritual level, he was up there number one. All the spirituality came through him. If you want to ask from the Torah, it goes going through Yosef. Now, look at this. If you're enjoying the shiur so far. Tzion. What is Tzion? Tzion is Yerushalayim. Yerushalayim is called the center of the earth. Why is it called the center of the earth?
Because it's a connection to heaven.
It's a connection to heaven.
Yeah.
Exactly. So geographically, it's near the middle, but spiritually, that is a center, because from that center point was the creation of the world. From that point, that was where, again, Joe?
All religions?
In all religions, in Judaism, The world was created through Jerusalem, through Yerushalayim, to the whole world. And the Shefa comes down from Jerusalem and spreads to the whole world. That was where Adam HaRishon was created. That was where Akedat Yitzchak. That's where the Beit Mikdash was represented. David HaMelech. Everyone goes there to pray. That's Sha'ar Shamayim. We go to Jerusalem. We go there. That's the nearest we can get is the Kotel. But all the Shefa, which means all the blessing which comes to this world physically and spiritually, comes down from Yerushalayim. Now it makes sense if I tell you that Tzion is Gematria Yosef. Because Tzion, that's where all of the Shefa comes down to the world, Yerushalayim, physical and spiritual. And Yosef, he's the one who gives that also spiritual and physically, the abundance to everyone, to all his brothers. So let's see that Tzion, Tzaddik is 90, Yud is 10, that's 100.
Vav 6, Nun 50.
50. So how much is that for us? 156, right? And Yosef is 10, Vav is 6,
6,
Samech is 60,
60,
Fei is 80. So how much is that? 80 and 40 and 10 and 6, 156. So you see, Tzion is the same gematria as Yosef. Okay. Now that's a way of introduction. You see that Yosef, where he's responsible for everything. Where did he get that from? And here we're going to go a little bit deeper, but I think everyone can get understanding again on his level, because this is, I'm telling you, this is not just for Yosef who was a tzaddik. Yosef, he was the only one that we called Yosef HaTzadik. There's no one else. Moshe Rabbeinu is not called Moshe HaTzadik or Aharon HaTzadik or David HaTzadik. It's only Yosef is called Yosef HaTzadik. And why is that? So I'm going to teach you a chidush from the Beit Avraham. And he says the following. He says, every Jew, Kol Yehudi, יש לה מן השמיים כתבת ייסורים שצריך לסבול. I'll say in English. There's a measurement and a portion of Yisurim, which is suffering. There's a certain amount of suffering that every person, Jewish person, is supposed to have in his life. Okay? And he says on the same amount, there's a portion of Ta'anugim, pleasures you're supposed to enjoy in his life. Okay, so everyone has the portion of pleasures they're supposed to enjoy and the portion of suffering they're supposed to go through. And everyone goes through their suffering. Everyone has their difficulties in life. And everyone has the pleasures that they enjoy. And he says this amazing chidush. He says, if somebody has, he calls it miyaser tatzmo b'kvishat hayetzer. I'm going to try and translate it into English. Kvishat hayetzer, when he conquers his desire or his inclination. If you overcome your desire or your burst, he said that is a type of suffering. Okay? When someone he has a desire to do something, a passion, and he says, this is not what I'm doing, it's not what Hashem wants, it's the wrong thing to do, I'm not doing it. When he fights for that, then that is a portion of his suffering. Okay, let me give you a simple example, okay? It's let's say it's Thursday night, okay? And a bit tired, long day, it's been a long week, maybe I go for coffee and I watch a movie, okay? And you say, listen, I'm not doing a movie, I have a coffee and I'm going to the shiur. So what have you done? You've done a kvishat hayetzer. You conquered your desire. You come to the shiur, and according to the Beit Avraham, because you've already received a portion of suffering, so now you have a portion of oneg. You can enjoy. You enjoy a beautiful shiur. Or let's say in the morning, okay, you went to bed late, you didn't sleep enough, and now it's time to wake up for shachrit. So you conquer your yetzer hara. You say, I'm going to wake up early, I'm going to go. He said, that kvishat hayetzer, that takes upon the account of how much suffering you're supposed to have. You could have woken up an hour later, skipped the tefillah, start an hour later today. And he goes, no, I'm getting up the hour earlier and I'm doing it on my tefillah. So the rest of the day is going to go smooth. You're going to have parnasah, you're going to have it be easy for you because the portion of suffering is already had. And he says, this is also in Yisurim, this is a chidush, in Gashmiyot and in Ruchaniyot. Now let me explain what that means. So everyone understands what it means suffering, physical suffering. Okay, there's many different types of physical suffering, right? in financial, in medical, but there's also a spiritual Yisurim. Yisurim b'ruchaniyut. Person tries to study Torah, doesn't understand Torah. Person in tefillah doesn't enjoy tefillah, doesn't enjoy prayer, doesn't enjoy Shabbat. But somebody is lucky enough to enjoys praying. I'm looking forward to Mincha, I'm looking forward to Birkat Hamazon. I enjoy it. I enjoy Shabbat. I'm looking forward to the Shiur Torah. I love the Torah. So he said that is the kitzbat. If you make the effort in controlling the Yetzer Hara, then you will enjoy the Tanugim physically and spiritually. And he says the Misilat Yesharim, the highest level of pleasure is
Yediat Hashem.
Torah?
Leitaneg al Hashem.
Yeah.
Leitaneg al Hashem is the highest level of Tanug. So he said if a person does the opposite, doesn't do Kvishat HaYetzer, doesn't conquer his desire, whatever feels like he has it. He eats what he wants whenever he wants, he does whatever he wants whenever he wants. And then what's he left with? He's taken up all his measurement of pleasure, and he's just left with the suffering. So he's going to have to suffer whatever area he has to have left. So in Judaism, we have built-in measures of conquering your desire of Yetzer Hara. So you have Yisurim built in. Now what do I mean? There's certain times you're allowed to be with your wife. Sometimes you're not allowed. You have to wait. You have to be patient. Even the children at a young age, you're meaty. You can't eat that. It's milky. You have to wait. Yeah. And you're told to restrain and hold back from yourself. That power is what we give the children. That you don't eat whatever you want whenever you want. You want to eat that chocolate? Let's check if it's kosher. Is it kosher? Then you can eat it. If you can't, it's not kosher, then you're not eating it. But Daddy, I want to eat it. No. So even the children, we teach them to restrain their desires. Now, why do we do that? Are we mean to our children? We want the best for our children? Of course we want the best. That's how you teach them. If you teach them to hold back their desires when they're young, that gives them the power to hold back from other things when they're older. When the passion and desire gets more difficult. And you see people that have that willpower and the self-restraint, they're the ones that they're able to give up smoking. If they decide to, they can give it up. They're the ones who can stay strong on a diet. They're the ones who stay strong in the commitment to their studies, because they have the strength, but also the commitment to the religion. But even more powerful, what we're saying now is that if they'll be able to conquer their desire, then they have much more pleasure in life, because they get to enjoy what they really want to do. You see, that was really the life of Yossef. In the beginning of the life of Yossef, Yossef suffered in his life. In the beginning, he was raised as an orphan. His mother died. He was hated by his brothers. They tried to kill him. He was thrown into a pit. He was accused of rape. He was thrown into prison. He was sold as a slave. That's a terrible start of life. That is really difficult. But he did all his suffering early on in life. And the second part of his life was all pleasurable. King of Egypt, Mashber Lekol Mitzrayim, with his father, with his brothers, with his sons. Yeah, he was a wonderful, beautiful life. And he says, even Yaakov Avinu, the last years of his life, that was the best part of his life was the end of his life. Also, Yaakov, all the suffering he had in the beginning. Esav, Lavan, Dinah, Yosef, Shimon, Binyamin, everything. But in the end of his life was pure pleasure. And you see, everyone should try and do that. And I appreciate that concept, that every suffering that you have is taken into account and just leaves you more pleasure for later. And if you see any kind of mitzvot which feels like, oh, this is going to be an uncomfortable mitzvah, this is going to be a difficult mitzvah to do, that's one you should go for, because that's going to give you more pleasure afterwards. Not ba'olam haba, ba'olam hazeh. In this world, you're going to have more, because in this world, there's a portion of suffering and there's a portion of enjoyment. He said, if you take your suffering and put it away of mitzvot, it doesn't cost you anything. Does it cost me anything to wait a few hours before I eat milk? No, it costs me nothing. It doesn't cost me my health. It's not embarrassing. No, so it's easy suffering. So why should I go for more difficult suffering? So I'll take this as my suffering, and then other things will be easy. So that was the life of Yossef. That was what we teach us, to wait and to hold back your desires. What is the most difficult desire to hold back? One of the most powerful drives of the passion. And this is where your Yesod comes in, of Yossefs. This is why all the Jews, we have a Brit Milah. The biggest passion is in the desire of why he wants to get married. And that is the pleasure that is born, the way the person has children. There's a lot in the Indian Kedusha, according to Kabbalah. What that part of the body is, the part of Yossef, is the reproductory organ. That is the Yesod. That is the Yesod. And the Tzaddik, he's the one who's able to conquer and to fix his Midat Yesod. Now this is a little bit deep. I don't know how much you'll be able to understand, but I'm going to try my best to explain. And everyone try to understand it on their level. Chen, what's Midat Chen? We said Ben Porat Yosef. Porat, we said, means chen, or charm. And Yosef was the son of charm. Chen. Where do we find chen in the Torah the first time? V'noach ish tzaddik haya v'noach matzah.
Chen b'nei Hashem. Yeah.
Thank you. Chen b'nei Hashem. Noach was found favor in the eyes of Hashem. He was charming in the eyes of Hashem. Why did Hashem like Noach so much? And this is really, we never seen this before, where it's spoken about. But it says, because Noach haya ish tzaddik. Now what does tzaddik mean? Tzaddik specifically, according to the Sfarim HaKadoshim, means tzaddik is someone who does tikkun ha-yesod. That means someone who is able to guard and protect his brit, the brit milah. That he uses it only the way for tzaddikim. He is the one who merits for chen.
No, I don't understand this. What's the meaning of tzaddikim?
Tzaddik, what does it mean, tzaddik?
Yeah.
Tzaddik is a righteous person. And he is specifically tzaddik is somebody who manages to do a tikkun, is to correct his desire of passion of the yesod, of brit milah, his brit.
Is it correction, or it's to subdue it?
To subdue it. That's what we call correction. Tikkun is to subdue your desire. That is called a tikkun. That's what I mean by to correct it. So when a man has physical desire and to pleasure, and he subdues it, then he makes a tikkun in the whole of Yesod. Now, why is it called Yesod? Why is it foundation? And why is that his whole body? And this we have a midrash. And this is what we say every day in Kriyat Shema. V'lo taturu acharei levavchem v'acharei einechem. What does that mean? First, a person sees. You see an image. And then, akodem ha'einayim ro'ot v'alev chomed. Your heart desires, but your heart only desires what your eyes see. And then, the kli ha'maaseh gomrim. Then your body carries on and does an action. But a tzaddik, he knows how to protect his eyes. He doesn't look at things you shouldn't supposed to look at. And then he doesn't have the desire and the heart and the drive or passion to want to do it. And then he protects himself. So you're looking at on which level? The eyes, the heart, and the body. It's already the whole body. That's why the foundation is called the Yesod. Why is it called Tikkun Yesod, Tikkun Abrit? Because it's really the whole body is involved in it. It's not just one protection. And you see Yosef was given, on each level, he was given reward. Listen to the Zohar HaKadosh. I'm going to read it in Hebrew. I'm not going to translate it. Maybe I won't read it. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ani atid latet schar tov lemי שהוא גודל עצמו מן העבירה. I will give great reward to whoever holds himself back from an avera. Good reward. Yosef, for example, he took control over his mouth. He didn't enjoy the avera with his mouth. ונאמר על פיך יישק כל עמי. According to your word, according to your mouth, the whole nation will be supported. He said, your neck didn't do avera, your neck wore a gold necklace around it. Ravida zahav al tzavaro. Your hands didn't enjoy the avera, and Paro took off his ring and put it on the hand of Yosef. Your body didn't enjoy the avera, you wore royal clothes. Your feet didn't go for the avera, you rode on the chariot of the king. Your thoughts didn't think about the avera. You became navon v'chacham. You became wise. Your heart, which didn't have hirurim, they called upon you avrech. You had that feeling of pride. And he says, even on the level of ruchniut, all of this was physical rewards that he got, but he got much more greater rewards on a spiritual level, the heights that she achieved. Now, Why am I saying this? Here we're talking about tzaddikim, and the tzaddikim will be able to master all of their ta'avot. But really, every Jew has this ability, and every Jew is commanded to go out and to protect your eyes and what you think about and what you want to do and what you see. And this is Parshat Vayechi, but in 2 days we're starting the Shemot, is the Shovavim, the weeks of Shovavim. And this is the Shovavim is known, the Parashat from Shemot. Starting of Shovavim is Rashi Tevot Shemot, Va'era Bo, B'Shalach Yitro, Mishpatim. That is called Rashi Tevot of Shovavim. They're the times, according to Kabbalah, which is big times for Tikkun HaYesod. That is the concept. There's a special tefillah that we can do on Ta'aniyot and Tehillim. But really, that's the shefa of bracha of the whole person. But everyone, if you just think about it, on what your level, what can we do to improve this level of Yesod? And to appreciate that, it's not just like one side mitzvah. It's not like but it's the level where a person can reach Kedusha. And every Jew, if you're a Jew, you have a neshama, you can reach this level of Kedusha. On some ways, be closer to Yosef HaTzadik. And in some ways, perceive that shefa of abundance of bracha in Ruchaniyot and in Gashmiyot. So is it worth it? Of course it is. And Ta'avot Givot Olam. That's why Yosef was blessed with more than all his brothers. That was what we asked. Why does he get more? Because Yosef was Yesod. If he was able to conquer his desire, then he deserves to get everything. He's the foundation. He's going to get all that abundance. He's going to be Ish Matzliach. He's going to be Yosef HaTzadik. And that's what he's going to have chen. Chen b'nei Hashem, but also chen b'nei Adam. Everyone's going to love him. And he will be successful in everything. So I think that's the message for here from Yosef. And that's what we're going to bless also the children. Of course, we want to bless our children like the sons of Yosef. Everyone wants their child to be successful in Ruchaniyut and Gashmiyut. And that's what we pray for. So if we remember that message, that we have we have a measurement of pleasure. So we want to make sure that we use it for good things. I remember also reading from Sefer Amidot, I read from Rabbi Nachman, he said that person in even Ta'avat Achila, which is the pleasure for food, and even kosher food, which is Yonati. But if you're too much indulging, how much I spend choosing, what's the best restaurant to go to. And in the restaurant, what's the best thing on the menu? How much time I spend trying to enjoy that to the maximum. Mayor, can we record? Excellent. Okay. I was just saying Rav Nachman was blessed. So he says that if someone is too much indulged in enjoying his tavat achila, in eating, depending, choosing what's the best thing on the menu to eat. No, I'm not talking about food for Shabbat. Food for Shabbat should be the best food for Shabbat. That is a mitzvah. You get the best food for Shabbat. That's the biggest mitzvah you can do. But even the weekday, not for Sudat mitzvah, just for a pleasure, sake of pleasure. So that damages your parnasa. Now, why is it? I never understood it. But here we can understand because damages your parnasa, your level. Being too much indulged in food.
To want nice food during the week?
No, everyone how you can enjoy your food. You put your sugar in your tea and put your salt on your food. That's fine. But I think to be too much involved in ta'avat achila, he said that affects your parnasa. And I never understood what was really the connection. But here we have some kind of understanding, because if we see a person is given his limited amount of his pleasures, and he takes that in food, you can have that. You could choose to do that. But I said that's going to affect the pleasures you have in other areas. Now, if you do it on Shabbat, then you see your mitzvah. Then that's not counted in it, because it's not a personal pleasure that you're taking, because you're doing a mitzvah. And we have a rule, mitzvot lav le'enot nitnu, which means the mitzvah doesn't take away from your pleasures that you're at. You can have that pleasure. But other pleasure, which is mutar, you can have, but it's going to cost you. Now, what I'm trying to say is on 3 levels. First of all, the suffering. There's a limited amount of suffering that you're supposed to go through. So first of all, if a person is suffering, you should know, listen, everyone has to suffer, and I'm having my suffering, but it just means it's going to stop, and then I'm going to have more pleasure later on. That means don't be, how do you say, miyaesh? Don't be miyuash, from the suffering.
Despaired.
Despaired.
Go on again.